Hello everyone, welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith, and this is the 2019 Rolling Solo Games of the Year Awards. Really excited for this video as I was requested by many individuals through the Facebook group as well as here on YouTube to actually go ahead and kind of cap off 2019 with something that covered multiple categories. So instead of doing kind of a top 10 list and structuring it that way, in this particular case, we're going to go through different categories and award kind of one game, one category win, essentially. So we're going to go through about 16 to 17 different categories, which should be a nice long list of that many games that you can potentially check out and look into. Hopefully something on this list is something you haven't heard before, or maybe something new that you would like to check out. Also, let me know in the comments below whether you have a better entry for one of the categories. Again, I'm only selecting one, and that's very tough to do when there's multiple that are great for a particular fit. Let me know in the comments below if you disagree with one of my choices. There's nothing wrong with that. My opinion is just as valid as yours is, and I really do want to hear what you have to say in the comments. Plus, other solo gamers will be able to come here as a point of reference to be able to check up and look up other games that you've actually mentioned in the comments, so you can be just as much of a part of this list as I have provided in this video. So without further ado, we're going to dive into this list. We'll spend about a minute to a minute and a half on each one, so we make sure we rip through the list at a fast pace. Hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, let's start it off with the first award for the best puzzle game of 2019, and that is the Isle of Cats. And you can see designer Frank West listed here, publisher The City of Games. Frank West is very well known for the City of Kings, if you're familiar with that particular solo game. Another really fantastic one, but this one being a very great puzzle game. If you're looking for a Tetris-style puzzle game, this is it. You can see the description right here. It's a competitive medium weight game. There's card drafting. You got placement of the board. Of course, what your main goal in this game to try and do is to rescue these cats and get them onto the boat before the evil Lord Vesh arrives. You can see all the different mechanisms listed here. It's a really interesting game. I got a chance to play this. I don't currently own it, although I do have a copy coming to me in the near future. I have tried this one solo and it has stuck with me very recently. Jumped way up my list, and I really enjoyed the idea of just trying to, again, draft your cards, get those cats onto the boat in really interesting ways. The art is beautiful, very cool looking, and I think this would actually interest quite a few people out there. So for my best puzzle game of 2019, you can call it the Isle of Cats. The next award is for the best deck building game of 2019, and that belongs to Aeon's End, the New Age, ranked 8.9 on Board Game Geek. That's extremely high, almost hitting the 9. Either way, that's a fantastic rating. Kevin Riley is the designer, publishers Action Phase Games, and Indie Boards and Cards. There's multiple entries into the Aeon's End world, and using this deck building system that's been created with this game, it is phenomenal. I have videos of it on my YouTube channel. You can check it out. But this entry being for this year is the best rated one available. It's about average weight overall, and it has all kinds of different mechanisms inside, but obviously the deck building is the major reason that this thing stands out. So if you're looking to dive into a new deck building, you've never checked out Aeon's End before, this is going to be the one you're going to want to check out. There are some absolutely beautiful artwork throughout this game, but you don't come for the artwork alone with Aeon's End, you come for the gameplay. It's beautifully designed, it's quick to the table, and it's a blast. Once you start playing this game, you will get hooked. The next award is for the best campaign game of 2019, and that belongs to Madara Unintentional Malum Act Number 1, hands down. This is a massive campaign game. Highly recommend this one. Done videos on the channel that you can check out to see exactly what this game has in store for you, but it is a beast. And this is just the original Act 1. There's a lot more campaign in terms of Act 2 and 3 coming down the line in the near future. This thing is, as I mentioned, massive in terms of its scale. The development window was years, and the amount of components inside the box is ridiculous. If you pick up something like this, you can expect to be busy for quite some time, and by far this thing is the best campaign that has dropped in 2019. The next award is for the best gateway game of 2019, and that is going to be Parks. Very close to an 8.0 for this one. Henry is the designer, Keymaster Games. This game is very interesting and it's going to be very different for most people on the channel that are not familiar with this one, as I haven't covered this particular game on the channel as of yet. It's a very beautiful looking game, a very great solo game, and a reason I give this the Gateway Game of the Year is because I find this to be a great entry point into solo play for individuals that aren't familiar. This could be given to someone who isn't really into board games as deep and as heavy as the majority of us here listening to this video are, but it adds something and it gives you something that I think is going to make you want to come back and check out more and find out, well, what is this all about? How have board games gotten to this state of enjoyment in solo play? And I think this is a great one that can grab you from the get-go as you go on a journey through the parks and kind of cash in on your adventures. It's a beautiful looking game as well. The next award is for the best small box game of 2019, and that belongs to Villagers, coming in with 7.5 Board Game Geek rating here, 2.28, so just a little under average in terms of its weight and complexity, which is actually perfect for newcomers to the hobby as well. So when I talked about a gateway game in parks just moments ago, this is also really a really great one in contention for that award earlier, just as much as this small box award. In this particular case, definitely built for solo play, Sinister Fish involved here with this one, and the premise behind it is you're a founder of a new village and there's been a plague, a great plague, and it's causing you to have to go ahead and city build and do some industry manufacturing. It's set in the Middle Ages, as we've already talked about, and I'm going to go ahead and just scroll this along so you can actually check out the box for this game now. Now it looks a little bit different than what it actually shows in some of these. It looks more like this. This is the latest version, so again, very compact, very easy to bring with you on trips, and again, in terms of its footprint, it doesn't take up a lot of space. You could play it on a very small hotel table and have no issues having this set up and giving it a go. So again, for my small box game of the year, this is certainly the one that I would choose. The next award is for the surprise hit of 2019. Without a doubt in my mind, it's Cthulhu Death May Die. This thing, in my mind, when it first landed on Kickstarter, was probably around a good or average looking, and surprisingly jumped way up my list this year, and actually jumped really high into my Dungeon Crawlers list, and even my overall list as well. So overall, I was just very pleased with what they did with this one. I love the system of the episodes and the Elder Gods being mixed and matched in order to create different strategies every single time you try to take on the same scenario, so there's lots of replayability there. It's just the only way to describe this game in a simplistic fashion is it's just fun. There's no other way to say it. You're going to have a blast with this one. If you are a solo player, you'll throw this down on the table, you'll get through this in a good amount of time. It's not going to be there, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and again, even though there's lots of miniatures involved, and it would appear that being a CMON production, it might have been overbearing with the amount of miniatures, they use the miniatures exactly as much as needed within the scenario that makes sense. You're not overwhelmed. This is not Zombicide. This is not 3,000 miniatures on the table. You take out what you need for that scenario and you play through that scenario. It's very well designed and it's different than anything out there HP Lovecraft based. The next award is for the best app-driven game of 2019, and that's the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. It builds upon Descent's app, Imperial Assault's app, and Mansions of Madness app to give you an app that basically streamlines much of the gameplay, leaving you with the ability to handle cards now instead of dice. A very interesting change from Mansions of Madness, so you're going to be actually manipulating a deck of cards, and you'll have successes that will show up on those cards, or potentially just inspiration, optional use of inspiration to convert to successes. So different ways of mitigating your success within the game than waiting for the dice to be in your favor. The app-driven part of this is very well integrated into the game. The only weakness I found in the core game experience that got to me was the fact that the actual weight of the story and narrative wasn't what I was looking for in a first experience for Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. However, recently there has been some talk and some leaks and some cover art shown for an expansion for this game that involves Gandalf, Mines of Moria, and a Balrog, and if that's all true and there's more of that stuff in the box plus a campaign, which I believe there is, then we're talking big time stuff there in terms of bringing people back into this game in a way that's going to actually resonate with the people that picked it up originally. And I think those campaigns that came in the core box were a little weak in terms of them having weight of enemies that you cared to kill. But if a Mines of Moria expansion type thing is coming down the pipes, that is certainly going to be the type of environment that people are going to want to dive into and play. The next award is for the best legacy game of 2019, and that's going to go to Aeon's End Legacy. This comes from Indie Boards and Cards. So as I talked about the new age, again, it's deck building all the way through, but in this particular case, another way into the world of Aeon's End, but this time through a legacy means. So you'll be going through a campaign that's going to unlock decks of cards. So a lot of this, when you first check it out, if you want to check the video on my channel, you'll see there's many decks of cards in the game that are closed up, and I don't show them in my video, but you'll be able to see at least how many decks are actually sealed up, and you don't open them until you reach them and you unlock them, and you do that by actually progressing through the game. So in the prior Aeon's End boxes, everything's really available to you. You can pick your nemesis to go up against and go at it. But in this particular one, you're moving through a chain of events and story, and that's going to unlock some things as you move through it, and that's going to change your deck, your cards, and all that stuff, the market, everything. So this is one, if you're looking for a deck building game that has some hidden elements and a nice story to kind of tie it together in terms of at least, maybe not story is the best way to say it, but more so like a chained, campaignish feel, or a light campaign feel through, this is going to be the ticket for you. The next award is for the best strategy game of 2019, and that is going to be Cloudspire from Chip Theory Games. And now you might be frightened by the price tag of Cloudspire. You might have shied away from it as a solo player. Those are two things you definitely should not do. Now, granted, yes, the price tag on this game is quite high. However, what you get as a solo player is fantastic. They've actually gone ahead and built in an actual scenario book specific to solo and cooperative play, so you are not picking up a game that is a multiplayer-based game for based on multiplayer online battle arena games, and then just hoping it has a nice tagged-on solo content to the side that you can kind of enjoy every once in a while. This has an actual fully flushed-out solo and cooperative mode. It is fantastic, and the strategy in this game is off the charts. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It's very well designed, it's very well produced, it looks beautiful, and it plays just as well. If you're concerned about anything to do with Chip Theory Games, I have high recommendations on them because of my love for Hoplomachus, Too Many Bones. Basically, all the games they've put out to date have been very much with the solo gamer in mind, so it's a safe bet every single time in most cases that Chip Theory Games is going to be catering to the solo gamer to ensure that the experience is a great one, and I can definitely attest to that with Cloudspire. The next award is for the best card game of 2019, and of course, if I didn't choose Marvel Champions the card game, I would have a swarm of people coming after me ready to beat me up, but it's because I truly love this thing. I mean, look at how high this thing is rated. Basically, any LCG from Fantasy Flight Games that has solo play, Arkham, Lord of the Rings, Marvel Champions, they have been knocking this stuff out of the park. So if you like LCGs, they typically do a bang-up job. Again, you have to be aware of the fact that there will be more content coming out in fairly quick succession, so there's that side of things. But if you don't like LCGs, then you kind of jump out, and there's other card games out there that are fantastic. But this year, at least for 2019 anyway, this one is the hot game, and I love it. I absolutely love the gameplay. If you stripped away everything about the IP and actually just played the game and put another theme on top of it, the gameplay is fast, it's furious, and it also looks really good on the table as well. They actually even put a storage solution inside the box. However, they didn't put any dividers, which caused a lot of issues with people wondering why they did that. We will see if anything comes of that in the future and they actually make use of it, but you can see here people have started putting their own dividers in. Again, with attaching Marvel to this game that's already excellent in terms of its gameplay, it's got a winning combination that's going to have many solo gamers on the hook for many, many years to come. The next award is for the best narrative-driven game of 2019, and that belongs to Madara Unintentional Malum Act Number 1. This is the second time during this list that it's shown up and won an award, so big congratulations to Succubus Publishing for this particular game. It is a behemoth. I'm going to show you the actual scenario book for this one, as you can see further proof of how absolutely massive it was, plus the years of development that led up to the size of this behemoth Act 1 book with all the story buried in there. So this is not going to be something where you go into a scenario and there's only just a couple paragraphs telling you why you're in the current scenario you're in. You're going to have 2 to 3 pages, sometimes more, between each of the scenarios in the book, giving you a full backstory as to what's really going on. And then on top of that, there's 2 other levels. One is on their site, the Succubus Publishing website itself. You have the availability to go and check out videos that they actually have created specifically for this particular game, instructional videos that are going to give you background information on how this particular game plays. So you have how to play, getting started, but when you jump back here, you've got Madeira lore videos. This is going to talk to you about how the game world actually works in and of itself. So they went to that level of detail to actually have videos to explain to you how the current world operates. Then on top of that, they have voice narrated everything in this scenario book, and they're working towards completing that through an app, which again, when you put all those 3 things together, it honestly can't be beat for anything that's currently sitting in 2019. The award for the most thematic game of 2019 is without a doubt Nemesis. Now you'll notice right here it says 2018, so I first want to explain this. Nemesis came out at the very, very tail end of 2018 and was delivering all through 2019 in the first quarter. So this game, even though BGG has it as 2018, in my opinion, it was completed its delivery of Wave 1 from the Kickstarter, and then of course into retail in 2019. That's when people started actually playing this game. So this is a 2019 entry, and this game is fantastic. You've heard about this one probably multiple different areas, but in terms of solo play, you've got a full-on comic which came with the Kickstarter, allowing you to play in a cooperative or solo mode. That's a fantastic way to play the game. You can also play the regular main game in a solo and cooperative state by controlling the characters on your own. So Nemesis is one that I really think is by far the most thematic solo game that was released in 2019. When you play this thing, you cannot help but think of Alien and Aliens as you rip through this game. They did a bang up job of this thing. It sat on my shelf for way too long during 2019 until I actually got to playing it, and when I did, I literally could not stop. The next award is for the best real-time game of 2019, and that is U-Boat, the board game. This is a board game that not only sits on your table and looks absolutely beautiful, but also has an app integrated with it to allow you to play the game and to actually see ships as you are sailing through the ocean, which is pretty awesome. So the thing about this game is there's 4 different man stations, so automatically from a solo perspective, you'd think that's a lot to take care of as a solo player. Well, you're right. There's not only a beautiful sub sitting on top here, so you can actually move the characters of the different engineers and all that kind of stuff to the different rooms inside the ship to make sure they're where they should be, to put out fires and to load torpedoes and all that kind of stuff. But you've got lots to man between the 4 stations, so what the app will do is you can choose to actually drop down the time in which time actually passes. So you can play in a real-time setting with multiple players, but because this list is specific to solo play, I'll mention the fact that you can slow time down. So technically, this is where it gets weird. It's winning an award for a real-time, situation, but you're actually slowing time through the app to be able to allow you as a solo player to control the 4 stations and be able to handle it all. Granted, this has heavy weight even with 4 people, and of course if you're doing this by yourself, that's going to be ramped up even further, but there are people out there that are absolutely enamored by this particular game and will love to try to tackle this thing on their own, and you absolutely can do that. So, being that there's not many real-time strategy games out there for solo play that are actually very well received, this is one that I highly recommend. The next award is for the best worker placement game of 2019, and that goes to Paladins of the West Kingdom from Garphill Games. If you're familiar with Raiders of the North Sea or Architects of the West Kingdom, these individuals put out some fantastic worker placement games. The weight is typically above average, but these games are great, and the theming of them is even better. So if you're looking for a worker placement game where theme typically doesn't seem to be all that strong, although over the course of many years it has become much, much better, this is one you're going to want to definitely check out. Again, especially if you're loving Raiders of the North Sea or Architects of the West Kingdom, this is going to be right up your alley. You need to dive into this thing. If you've never checked out any of those before, then I recommend you kind of dive into all three and actually figure out which one fits for you best. But overall, this game looks fantastic on the table. It has a great solo mode built inside the game itself, and even though it looks like a lot on the table, it's actually all compacted into a very small box and surprisingly can actually fit back in there. It takes some work, but I guarantee you'll get it all inside. The next award is for the best dice chucker of 2019. I mean, come on, it's got to be Zombicide. Like, of all the dice chuckers out there, Zombicide is the king of chucking dice around the table. This comes from Simon Games, very low weight. And actually, I'd even put the weight a little lower than this. Really, what ticks the weight up to probably even an average level is when you start talking about the abominations and those special rules that come into play with all the content. Because, well, there's a lot of content. This is the kind of game you're going to want to set up to just literally jump into a scenario and just slaughter zombies. That's pretty much what it's all about. The rule set continues to evolve as the game goes along. People obviously go to the nines with this particular game. That actually looks really, really cool. Looks like they're using battle systems in this particular picture, which if they are, I highly recommend those. Those are pretty fantastic, and that actually looks quite awesome. Definitely adds to the game. But Zombicide's a great gateway game as well for solo gamers that want kind of that Ameritrash feel to their games. And again, dice chucking wise, you can't really get any more crazy with dice chucking than Zombicide Invader from a solo player's perspective for 2019. So Invader takes the cake right there. The next award is the Best Kickstarter Campaign of 2019. So what board game landed on Kickstarter inside of 2019 for its campaign? What is the best one? In other words, what had the most backers? What had the most money? That is definitely Aetherfields. Now, Aetherfields has not delivered yet, but this award specifically goes after the best campaign of 2019. And as you can see, going through the most funded list here on Kickstarter with no year breakdown whatsoever, you can move through all these projects until you hit a particular project that's from 2019. We know it's Aetherfields. It is Aetherfields. 32,000 plus backers in this one. Absolutely ridiculous amount of backers. And basically cresting over £4 million. That is craziness. And of course, during the Pledge Manager, that probably even upped who knows how much more, but just ridiculous numbers on this particular Kickstarter. And this was actually a lot of fun because I got to be a part of this one, put up some videos, and it looks like something that's going to be really interesting and unique when it lands in 2020. And last but certainly not least, the final award to be given away for this particular video to wrap up 2019 is the best solo game of 2019 is easily, without a doubt, Tainted Grail, The Fall of Avalon from Awakened Realms. This game was absolutely and is utterly fantastic. Played through this in multiple different development slots along the way through its development window, which was before the Kickstarter, during the Kickstarter, and after the Kickstarter with the release of the production copy. And it is a fantastic game that very much implements a solo and cooperative adventure inside of the game from the get-go. It's extremely thematic. It's got really, if you want an adventure and you want to be lost in another world, this is a game that a solo player is going to want to try and find and pick up, because this is going to give you an experience unlike most things available currently. Plus, the mechanics in the game are very, very unique, and that's something I really like, is that it didn't just follow the mold of how typical games resolve these types of adventure games. There's interesting card mechanics and card play involved, and how you actually progress in the game is all that unique. And on top of it, the miniatures that come inside the game, even though they're nice to have, it's not one of those games where the cards are just strewn about with thousands of miniatures everywhere. There's a whole bunch of them, but they only come out when they need to come out based on the story and based on who you're controlling. So what's really nice is you're not just being overwhelmed by a game that looks incredible and has a lot going on, but really it's going to have more weight when those special events, special characters, characters, special monsters come into play. It's one that I highly, highly recommend. It's going to probably be up in the top thematic for quite some time going forward, and I wouldn't be surprised if the overall ranking on Board Game Geek continues to rise up into the top 100 as time goes on. And that's going to conclude the 2019 Rolling Solo Games of the Year Awards. And I'm really, really excited to move into a 2020 focus, which is exactly what we're going to be doing as we go forward, as we're already in 2020. But hopefully this puts a nice bow on 2019. You can take a look at a number of the games from this list as reference points to different areas of interest of mine. And also, if you have particular categories that you think would be of interest for next year's video, let me know in the comments below, because I'd love to add some. Or if you found particular ones not of interest or uninteresting to you, let me know that as well, because that's great feedback as we change this thing year to year. So first off, a big congratulations to all the individuals that were able to be identified as winners during this video. But again, I didn't do this in a serious manner. I wanted this to be more of an informative video than it was a video about pointing out the best of the best. However, in my opinion, this particular list does involve a large number of very, very successful titles over 2019. And honestly, how 2020 is shaping up to look in the near future, it's looking like it's going to be a pretty awesome year. So I can't wait for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, keep on rolling solo.